Step back in time and rediscover the wholesome eating habits that once shaped American families. These timeless traditions were simple, smart, and surprisingly healthy. Let's bring these classic habits back to life together. Before convenience foods took over, most meals were made entirely from scratch. That meant chopping vegetables, mixing dough by hand, and using real ingredients from the pantry or garden. Families didn't rely on prepackaged meals. They made everything fresh, often in large batches to last a few days. It took time, but the benefits were enormous. Fewer preservatives, more nutrients, and greater control over what went into every dish. It was also a form of connection. Grandparents taught kids how to knead bread, stir stew, and season dishes without measuring cups. Cooking from scratch naturally reduced processed foods, salt, and sugar intake. As fast food and microwave meals took off in the 80s and 90s, this tradition faded for many households. But today, more people are returning to these roots, discovering that simple meals made at home can be both delicious and deeply grounding. Fresh food doesn't have to be fancy, it just has to be real. Long before screens dominated dinner, families gathered nightly around the kitchen table. Eating together wasn't just about food, it was a daily ritual. It created structure, deepened relationships, and taught kids manners and conversation. The act of sitting down, passing dishes, and talking about the day reinforced mindful eating habits. Meals were paced, not rushed. There were no distractions from phones or television. Studies today confirm what families back then practiced naturally. Eating together leads to better nutrition, lower rates of obesity, and stronger emotional bonds. Parents set examples with portion control and balance. Kids were more likely to try new foods, ask questions, and actually listen to their body's hunger signals. Over the years, as schedules grew hectic, shared meals became rare. But this simple tradition still holds powerful benefits. Even 1 or 2 family dinners a week can make a difference. A table, some chairs, and conversation. That's all it really takes to nourish more than just your stomach. Once upon a time, you ate what was in season, because that's what was available. Families planned meals around what grew locally, whether it was corn in the summer, apples in the fall, or hearty root vegetables in winter. This meant fresher food, better flavor, and more nutrient-dense meals. Canning and preserving were popular ways to stretch the seasons, but there was always an awareness of nature's calendar. Seasonal eating naturally rotated nutrients and encouraged variety. It also kept food costs lower and connected people to their land and farmers. As grocery stores began importing produce year-round, this rhythm was lost. Strawberries in December might be convenient, but they often lack the taste and nutrition of June berries. Today, farmers markets and CSA boxes are bringing back the joy of seasonal eating. It's not about restriction, it's about celebration. But before we dig deeper into what was on the plate, let's talk about how they handled what was left on it. Nothing went to waste in traditional American homes. Yesterday's roast became today's sandwich filling. Last night's vegetables turned into soup, casseroles, or hash. This wasn't just thrift. It was smart nutrition. Leftovers weren't microwaved and forgotten. They were reimagined. Cold chicken got shredded into salads, mashed potatoes transformed into fried patties, and stale bread became bread pudding or stuffing. Not only did this reduce food waste, but it also encouraged balanced, varied eating throughout the week. Families learned to be flexible and resourceful in the kitchen. It also taught kids an important lesson. Food has value beyond a single meal. As throwaway culture took over, so did the idea of tossing out perfectly good food. But many are returning to the wisdom of leftovers, not just for savings, but for sustainability and creativity. With a little imagination, last night's dinner can become today's favorite dish. Sometimes, the second act is even better than the first. Decades ago, the default drink with dinner wasn't soda, it was water. Maybe iced tea or milk on occasion, but water was the go-to. Served in pitchers or glasses, it kept meals light, digestion steady, and hydration in check. It also meant fewer calories and sugar crashes, especially for kids. Families didn't reach for sugary drinks with every bite, and soda was treated as an occasional treat, not a mealtime staple. This habit wasn't necessarily about health awareness. It was just common sense and routine. Water was cheap, clean, and always available. Over time, sugary beverages took over dinner tables and lunchboxes, contributing to rising health concerns. But going back to water is one of the simplest, healthiest habits we can reclaim. It cleanses, hydrates, and helps you appreciate the actual flavors of your food. And best of all, it never goes out of style. Did your family always have a cold pitcher of water on the table? Let us know in the comments. For generations, families grew what they ate, and they didn't need acres to do it. Even a small backyard garden could provide tomatoes, cucumbers, green beans, or leafy greens. It wasn't just about food, it was a way of life. Gardening encouraged physical activity, time outdoors, and a deep connection to the land. Kids learned how plants grew, what seasons meant, and where their meals came from. Eating from the garden meant fresher, more nutritious produce without pesticides or long transport times. It also meant variety. Whatever grew well ended up on the plate. During wartime, victory gardens kept families fed. In peacetime, they were simply a smart tradition. Over time, convenience took over, and fewer households maintained home gardens. But today, the practice is making a comeback, even in cities. Whether it's a single tomato plant on a balcony or a full veggie patch out back, gardening is health from the ground up. And while gardens fed the body, what came next fed the soul, one family gathering at a time. Sunday dinners were more than meals. They were weekly rituals that brought families together and slowed the world down. Grandparents, cousins, neighbors, everyone came to the table. The menu often featured wholesome comfort food, roasted meats, fresh vegetables, homemade rolls, and fruit-based desserts. It wasn't fancy, but it was made with care and meant to be shared. These gatherings encouraged portion control, slower eating, and real connection. Unlike rushed weeknight meals, Sunday dinners were leisurely, often followed by conversation, storytelling, or even a walk. This practice grounded families emotionally and physically, offering consistency, love, and nourishment. Over time, shifting work schedules, screen time, and fast food weakened this tradition. But it's one worth reviving. Even if you can't gather every week, dedicating time to a shared, thoughtful meal can create rhythm and reflection in a busy life. A Sunday dinner isn't just about the food, it's about what it gives you afterward. Waste not, want not. That was the motto in old American kitchens. When a chicken was roasted or a beef roast was carved, the bones didn't go in the trash. They went into a pot to make bone broth. Simmered with onion ends, carrot tops, and celery leaves, these broths were nutrient-rich and deeply flavorful. Packed with collagen, minerals, and amino acids, bone broth was a health powerhouse long before it became trendy. It was used as a base for soups, stews, and gravies, or simply sipped on its own. Making broth was easy, cheap, and incredibly resourceful. It turned scraps into something comforting and restorative. As processed stock cubes and canned broths became the norm, this slow, simple tradition faded. But it's coming back strong, especially among wellness-minded cooks. Homemade broth not only saves money, it also fills your home with warmth and your meals with flavor, all from something you once tossed away. Before prepackaged snacks and cafeteria chains ruled, school lunches were packed with love and actual ingredients. Moms, and sometimes dads, wrapped sandwiches in wax paper, filled thermoses with hot soup, and slipped in fresh fruit, boiled eggs, or homemade trail mix. Lunch wasn't about trends, it was about nutrition and care. Parents had control over what went in the lunchbox, and kids learned to appreciate balance. Something savory, something crunchy, something sweet. There were no plastic trays or vending machine cookies, just simple food that fueled the day. These hand-packed meals often reflected leftovers, seasonal produce, or budget-friendly creativity. As time went on, processed lunch kits, sugary snacks, and cafeteria convenience pushed this tradition aside. But making a comeback now is the art of the homemade lunch. Thoughtful, nourishing, and waste-conscious. Packing your own or your child's lunch puts the power of choice back in your hands. It's not just about eating, it's about effort, love, and long-term health. But portion control didn't stop with what was packed. Sometimes it came down to the plate itself. Big portions weren't the norm in old American households, especially because the plates themselves were smaller. Dinnerware in the mid-20th century was noticeably more modest in size, naturally limiting how much food could be served. This unintentional form of portion control helped families eat balanced meals without excess. Meals were satisfying, but not overwhelming. Seconds were available, but they were just that. Seconds, not supersized first helpings. Smaller plates encouraged more mindful eating, slower chewing, and better digestion. Over time, as portion sizes ballooned in restaurants and at home, so did the size of the average dinner plate. Today, many nutritionists recommend returning to this old-school habit as an easy way to curb overeating. Downsizing your dishes can make a big difference without making you feel deprived. Sometimes the simplest changes are the most effective. Did your grandparents have those floral-patterned plates that barely held a burger? Let us know in the comments. Cold cereal wasn't the norm for older generations. Back then, breakfast meant something hot. Oatmeal, eggs, toast, or pancakes, often made from scratch. These meals were simple, hearty, and nourishing. Parents believed in fueling up for the day, and kids rarely left the house on an empty stomach. Hot breakfast delivered protein, fiber, and warmth, helping balance energy throughout the morning. Popular options included fried eggs with whole grain toast, steel-cut oats with fruit, or a slice of cornbread with milk. These weren't elaborate meals, but they set a tone of care and preparation. As lifestyles sped up and cereal marketing took over, this daily ritual became a rarity. But studies continue to show the benefits of starting the day with real food, improved focus, metabolism, and mood. Bringing back hot breakfasts, even just a few times a week, can reset your energy and mindset. It's more than food. It's how you begin your day with intention. Freezers weren't always stuffed with boxed dinners. In traditional homes, preserving food, through canning, pickling, and drying, was a seasonal ritual. After harvest, families would spend weekends prepping applesauce, tomatoes, green beans, jams, and more. Jars lined basement shelves, and pantries held treasures that lasted all winter. This habit meant families ate fewer additives, less sodium, and used up fresh produce before it spoiled. It also cut down on grocery trips and gave families pride in their self-sufficiency. While it started from necessity, many came to enjoy the tradition. The steam from boiling jars, the snap of a sealed lid, the satisfaction of putting food up for the months ahead. Over time, convenience foods replaced this ritual, and the skill nearly vanished. But in recent years, home canning and pickling have made a comeback, both for health reasons and nostalgia. Preserving food at home is more than smart, it's empowering. But old-school habits didn't stop at home. Some of the best ones came from shopping smart before cooking even began. In the days before pre-portioned packaging, families bought ingredients in bulk and cooked in big batches. A sack of flour, a bushel of apples, a crate of potatoes. These were the building blocks of a week's worth of meals. Bulk shopping saved money, reduced waste, and encouraged home cooking. Families would spend a Sunday making enough soup, stew, or chili to last for days. Leftovers were planned, not accidental. This method also made it easier to eat balanced meals, since prepped food was always ready. It taught resourcefulness, time management, and appreciation for ingredients. As small packaged goods and frozen entrees became widespread, bulk buying faded in many homes. But today, it's coming back, especially with warehouse clubs, co-ops, and sustainability movements on the rise. Buying in bulk and cooking in batches reduces cost, stress, and food waste. Best of all, it keeps you connected to the rhythm of home-cooked meals. Vegetables weren't optional, they were automatic. In older American households, vegetables appeared at every meal. Cooked greens with breakfast, a salad with lunch, and roasted or boiled sides at dinner. They weren't hidden, disguised, or snuck in. They were the norm. Part of this came from having gardens or relying on seasonal produce, but it also stemmed from a no-nonsense approach to balanced eating. Kids learned early that vegetables were simply part of a meal, not something to avoid. Whether it was green beans, carrots, beets, cabbage, or turnips, families ate what was available and learned to love, or at least tolerate it. Meals were colorful, fiber-rich, and nutrient-dense by default. Over time, processed sides and fast food options pushed veggies off the plate. But this habit is easy to revive. One green item at every meal makes a huge difference. It's not about perfection. It's about building a simple, lasting foundation for better health, one plate at a time. saying grace, or pausing before meals. In many American homes, meals began with a pause. Sometimes it was a prayer, sometimes a moment of silence, and sometimes just holding hands and saying thanks. This ritual wasn't just spiritual. It set the tone for mindful eating. It reminded families to slow down, appreciate their food, and be present. For children, it reinforced gratitude and routine. For adults, it created space to breathe before diving into a busy evening. These moments help distinguish meals from just eating and turn them into meaningful rituals. Even in non-religious homes, families might reflect or share one thing they were thankful for before picking up a fork. Over time, as life got busier and meals became more fragmented, this quiet moment disappeared. But it's a powerful habit to reclaim. Even a simple pause before your next meal can shift your mindset and improve digestion, connection, and peace. Did your family say grace, hold hands, or pause before dinner? Let us know in the comments. Before candy bars and packaged sweets took over, dessert often meant fresh fruit. A bowl of sliced peaches, chilled watermelon, baked apples, or stewed berries was enough to satisfy any sweet tooth. These fruit-based endings weren't just healthier, they were rooted in seasonal eating and homegrown abundance. In the summer, families enjoyed fruit straight from the garden or local market. In colder months, preserved or dried fruit kept the tradition alive. Occasionally, fruit might be paired with a dollop of cream or a spoonful of sugar, but it wasn't about indulgence, it was about balance. This habit helped families limit processed sugar intake while still enjoying something sweet. Over time, sugary snacks became more accessible, and fruit lost its place on the table. But bringing fruit back as a default dessert is easy and refreshing. It resets your palate and gives your body something it actually needs: real nutrients, natural sweetness, and simple satisfaction. Sometimes dessert doesn't need a wrapper, it just needs a peel. Old American communities thrived on generosity, and food was often the love language. Whether it was a warm pie, a jar of preserves, or an extra casserole, sharing food with neighbors was a deeply rooted tradition. It wasn't about showing off. It was about connection, care, and support. New baby? Someone dropped off a stew. Family illness? Expect baked bread and soup. Sharing food created a culture of nourishment beyond the home. It also exposed families to new flavors and cooking styles, broadening palates and building bonds. Kids learned that food wasn't just personal, it was communal. While modern life has grown more private and fast-paced, this tradition still has value. Dropping off a meal, sharing homegrown veggies, or inviting someone over for dinner can be powerful acts of care. The healthiest meals aren't always about nutrients. They're about what they nourish beyond the plate: compassion, friendship, and belonging. And sometimes, the best meals are the ones made for someone else. Meals used to be an event, not a race. Families took time to chew, chat, and enjoy their food without phones, television, or to-do lists crowding the table. This natural pace of eating encouraged digestion, mindfulness, and satisfaction. People noticed when they were full and appreciated what was on their plate. Eating slowly gave time for conversation and connection, helping meals become more than just fuel. Distractions were minimal. No scrolling, no driving, no eating over the sink. The result? Less overeating, better digestion, and a stronger connection to hunger cues. As busy schedules took over and screen time crept into every moment, slow, focused meals became rare. But this habit is worth reviving. Even just one undistracted meal a day can improve your relationship with food. You don't need silence, just presence. Tune into your meal like they did back then, and your body and mind will thank you. But one of the most powerful traditions came after the meal, when the table was cleared, but the lessons remained. In the past, cooking wasn't just for grown-ups. It was a family affair. Kids were expected to pitch in, whether it was snapping green beans, stirring batter, or setting the table. This involvement taught responsibility, kitchen skills, and a deep appreciation for where food came from. Children didn't just show up to eat, they helped create the meal. It also encouraged them to try new foods, since they had a hand in making them. Cooking together created bonding moments and passed down family recipes, cultural traditions, and essential life skills. Over time, as convenience foods took over and schedules became tighter, kids were pushed out of the kitchen. But studies show that involving children in meal prep increases their likelihood of choosing healthier options. It empowers them, educates them, and connects them to the act of nourishment. Cooking with kids isn't just cute, it's crucial. It's how healthy habits are planted early and passed down like heirloom seeds. When dinner ended in older households, the work wasn't over, but it was shared. Everyone had a job. One person cleared the plates, another washed, another dried, and someone else put things away. Cleaning up together reinforced teamwork, respect for the meal, and appreciation for effort. It also made the transition from eating to the rest of the evening feel intentional. Kids learned responsibility, and no one person, usually mom, carried the burden alone. These few minutes of cooperation taught life lessons and gave families a chance to extend their togetherness. Over time, with the rise of dishwashers and individual schedules, cleanup became more isolated or forgotten entirely. But this habit deserves a comeback. It turns a chore into a closing ritual, one that brings the whole household into harmony. A healthy meal isn't just about what's eaten, it's about what's honored afterward. Did your family clean up together? Or did you sneak away before the dishwashing started? Let us know in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this journey into timeless healthy traditions. Which habits will you bring back to your table? Share your thoughts and join us again for more vintage wisdom. Until next time.